Hello everybody, Andy from Glass Half Dead here, and today I want to talk to you about the Warhammer article that came out yesterday all about Combat Patrol. Now I want to do why Combat Patrol? Good question. Because Combat Patrol is, I think, for most of us the natural stepping stone if we're 40k curious and we're currently playing Kill Team, and if you're playing Kill Team, that's why you're watching my channel, let's be honest. Are you going to make the full step to 40k? Or are you going to go Combat Patrol, then 40k? No matter the Combat Patrol format, which we're about to cover here, I'm going to read the article, you are going to go to Combat Patrol before you go to big 40k. Why is that? Well, for those of you that haven't really branched out into 40k, not even 10th edition, just how the 40k pipeline works, honestly, they've done a pretty solid job of Combat Patrol building. It's like a £90 box, which obviously you then get for cheaper because you go to your local game store, you get like 15, 20% off, whatever. Oh, I have an Element Games affiliate link down below if you want to go buy one, by the way. That was completely unintentional, but good plug there. And actually, quite genuinely, it's kind of the best way to get started. It used to be the case for many channels, like a really good piece of content you can make is how to get started with X faction. Now, there is no faction where the answer doesn't start with buy the Combat Patrol. The start collectings before this, which obviously were cheaper, they were a little bit more hit and miss, and there were some factions where it was like, you know what, you don't need this. Now the only question is, do you buy 1 or 2 Combat Patrols before going and buying more for that faction? But you pretty much always start with the Combat Patrol. And of course, if you're coming from Kill Team, you already have 1 unit for your faction, presumably. So you have your little unit, and then you buy a Combat Patrol, and then you kind of, you know, you're not too far off of a full-scale army there. Talking of full-scale, I do have another channel called Full Scale Wargaming. It's going to be all about 10th edition, and if you want more of this kind of 40k content, but in a far higher quality than just me turning my webcam on and chatting, go check that out. Obviously, there's no 40k content on there until 40k releases, till Leviathan drops, but right now, cool Gallo full battle report that you should definitely check out. A couple of little technical issues there, but the reason I'm doing that now instead of going just when 40k launches is because hype. Okay, sweet. So, let's get into it. Very quickly, Combat Patrol is, I just want to do this super basic, okay? 10th edition is a whole new rule set, and we're not really going to be covering the basic rules of 40k yet, although Warcom is starting to say those. That's not really what this video is about. I'm not going to teach you to play 40k. I'm just going to cover the Combat Patrol and the pipeline from Kill Team up to that, and hopefully see what's interesting in this article for us. So, Combat Patrol is a box that you will buy for your faction, and they've done a new thing with this latest edition called the Combat Patrol format. Before, you could, if you wanted, play a Combat Patrol size game. It was a small game of 40k, but there were no changes to the core rules, no changes to the data sheets, no changes to anything in the game. You were just choosing to play 40k at 500 points, and that's it. That's all Combat Patrol was. Now they've said, you know what? We're going to make it its own thing. And every box, every Combat Patrol box is going to be tested individually on its own as packaged against every other Combat Patrol, and we're going to make it its own format. So as we're about to see as we go through here, they have limited certain abilities, limited certain data sheets, greatly reduced the number of stratagems, even from 10th edition, and what they say we're going to be getting there, to just out, I think both players get 3 stratagems, that's it, something like that. And yeah, so it is its own format, and they do talk about it here quite heavily. They're saying the whole Combat Patrol format has been balanced, play tested, etc., etc. Extensive changes made from their 40k data sheets It is its own thing. However, where possible, they have kept the core principles of the game. So you're still playing 40k. It's just they've limited things. You're still using basically the same rules, but you have less options. Cool. Right. With that said, of course, before I go any further, I would like to say that if you are a subscriber to my channel, I'd like to give you a big double hello. Wow, so wholesome. Guys, gals, can't think of that third G without it sounding a little bit wrong. What is a double hello? Well, it's your reminder that a pleasantry is delightful. So that is a delightful pleasantry for you. There's nothing more to it than that. However, if you would like to repay me for my double pleasantry there, you could consider leaving a like, a comment, and a subscribe. And hey, I also have a second channel, Full Scale Wargaming. If you really like what I'm doing here on Glass Half Dead, consider checking out my Patreon. I also have, if you're a Kill Team mad lad, and you're somehow not on my Discord, you are missing out. All right, let's crack on with it. Okay, so Combat Patrol. They have finally revealed the Combat Patrol board size. Now, this, to anybody that's kind of already existing in 40k, might sound like a bit of a weird one for me to be excited by, but genuinely I am, because they've already announced that it used to be, if you were playing 500 points or 1,000 points, those were both played on the same size board, and now they've changed that. So if you're playing 1,000 points or 2,000 points, those are played on the same size board. So I thought that perhaps the Combat Patrol format, everything would just be on that 44 by 60 board. Not the case. So now, 1,000 points, 2,000 points, that is 44 by 60, which is 4 Kill Team boards. Combat Patrol is going to be 44 by 30, which is 2 Kill Team boards pushed together. Cool. That's good to know. That means I can happily play that, presumably. And then they have a nice little picture of it here. They've also shown here the Vardengast Swarm and Strike Force Octavius. These are the two combat patrols for the new Tyranids and the new Space Marines. This is going to be interesting to see what they do here, because this is essentially the Leviathan box, but with a few less units on both sides. But I've got to say, that Vardengast Swarm looks crisp. I mean, there's 20 termagants again, so if you want to stock up on those new termagants, it looks like you're going to be able to get them really easily. And let's be honest, they're also going to be doing a starter box, much like they do currently, where you get the Necron Warriors and a Warden or an Overlord, I can't remember, and on the other side you get 5 Assault Intercessors and a Lieutenant, right? There's going to be a version of that here. It's probably, from the looks of it, going to be these models. I imagine you will get, in the most basic one, 10 Termagants and the Hive Prime, versus presumably the Librarian and the Pyre Blaster guys, I guess. Cool. Good to know. If you need them, they're going to be dirt cheap. Nice. Oh, sorry. Another thing to mention. All of the rules are free. There you go. The only thing you need that you have to pay for to play this is the models in the Combat Patrol box. There you go. All of the rules, not just the indexes in 40k, but the whole of Combat Patrol, which logically, from what they say, isn't going to change the rules from index to codex. It will just remain its own thing. You will never have to buy a codex to play Combat Patrol, would be my guess. Is all free. As soon as on launch day, you will have access to every single Combat Patrol box and the rules for it, which is good because I just bought a Necron Combat Patrol and a Death Guard Combat Patrol, and man, I'd be real annoyed if I didn't get those rules after buying them now. Cool. So let's keep on powering through. Basically, everything I've just said covers what they've just said here. If you haven't been paying attention to rules, but maybe you have a vague idea of things, relics are something that existed in 9th and 8th, etc. Those have changed and are now called enhancements, presumably because, you know, a Tyranid wouldn't have a relic. They have an enhancement, but it means the same thing for a Space Marine, right? Cool. Nice. we see here, this is a real interesting one. This is the thing that made me think, okay, they've put a little bit of work into this. It's not just that they've given Combat Patrol a special army-wide thing because they know the Necron Patrol box, the Combat Patrol box has a flyer, so they know that they have to nerf that entire thing, and so like the whole team gets a -1 to ballistic skill. It's not something like that. They've gone ahead and they've changed all of the data sheets, which I think is cool, and to me shows hopefully some level of thought and interest. But this is also a really good way to see what they've done in the way things are different. So Combat Patrol is entirely its own format with its own data sheets. It is entirely possible, of course, to take Captain Octavius and just make him a Captain in Terminator armor without changing anything on the model. However, in the Combat Patrol, you don't get a weapon option. He just has what he comes with: the Stormbolter, the relic weapon. Done. No questions asked. And then if we look on the side there, he still has Deep Strike and Leader on both sheets. He still has Oath of Moment on both sheets. But then instead of getting War Gear abilities and all of these crazy things, they instead get one ability: Unstoppable Valor. You can reroll charge rolls made for the model's unit. Nice. A bit of an odd one, I'm going to throw this out there, is the invulnerable save changing position. And I'm really curious why they've done that. I don't know. But there you go. Invuln save, instead of being in the bottom right, is now below the save. Don't know why. Don't know why. And I really like to see this because it does show they've thought about it, at least. I don't know. I'm probably giving them too much credit, and it's just, no, Captain Octavius only comes with this loadout, so, whatever. But okay, cool. They do say that every chap, much like this guy gets Oath of Moment, Tyranids are still going to get Shadow in the Warp and Synapse, and so presumably Necrons are still going to get Reanimation Protocols. Chaos Space Marines are still going to get Dark, Heretic, or whatever it's called. And then we get to see a few of the enhancements shown off. We've only seen one enhancement before, which I think was for the Space Marines or something. So now we see things like... So if you want to have zero thought put into the game, and you just want to take your team out of the box and go, you have a default enhancement. This is what the team is supposed to be run with. But you can, if you want, swap in for an optional enhancement. So it's only 2 options for an enhancement per team. You put the enhancement on your Warlord. Simple stuff. You can do straight out of the box, or you can have that little bit of customization. But the models aren't going to have customization. For example, and scares me a little bit, but for the Necron Combat Patrol, the box art shows Necron Immortals with Gorse, Death Marks, and then some other stuff. And the reason that's scary is because Necron Immortals with Gorse, Necron Immortals with Tesla, and Death Marks are all made from the same 5 models, the same kit. And so I followed the box art, so I have 5 Immortals, 5 Necrons with Gorse. It's possible, because it's the same kit, they might just say, nah, you gotta build these guys with Tesla. Because, I mean, it's fine, that will be an easy proxy, nobody's gonna care. But who knows, right? Let's hope if you bought that Combat Patrol, you followed the artwork, right? Anyway, so that's cool. They have our enhancements set for us. We then get to see a few things. So there are now in 10th edition primaries. It's called a shared primary, and then you get your own secondary. So the shared primary will be something like hold the point. If you hold an objective, you get 1 VP. If you hold a second objective, you get 2 VP. Something like that. That's the shared primary, which is very standard. We all know what that is. Stand on a point. Get a VP for doing that. But then every Combat Patrol is going to have its own secondary. And then, much like with the enhancements, you have the one you're supposed to take, the default build, or you have an option. So even within the Combat Patrol, although it's going to be very static, which is fine, because it's Combat Patrol, you are going to have the optional one. So, for example, here, Wrath of the Emperor. At the end of the phase, you score 2 VP if your captain model destroyed 1 or more enemy models that phase. Or you can swap it out Shock Tactics. At the end of each player's turn, you score 5 VP if you control one or more objective markers that your opponent controlled at the start of that turn. Cool. We then get to see a strategic ploy. Now, strategic ploys, I've mentioned these before, but if you haven't seen my rant, I love them. Look at that. When target effect. I don't know 10th edition, and I can tell you exactly what this does. When does it happen? The reinforcement step of your movement phase. So they have talked about that. Basically, you have your movement phase, and then right at the end, you have a reinforcement step. Cool. Target one Termagant's unit from your army. You can use this stratagem on that unit, even if it is destroyed. Nice. Effect. If your unit is not destroyed, return up to D6 destroyed models to it. Otherwise, add a new unit to your army identical to your destroyed unit in strategic reserves containing 2 D6 models. So, I've just said this is great. But here's an interesting one. I'm sure it will be obvious if I knew the rules for 10th, right? But it happens in the reinforcement step of your movement phase. And you're putting this 2d6 unit into strategic reserves. Can you then immediately move them onto the board? I assume you can, because you're still in the reinforcement step. I assume. I'm obviously making guesses here. I don't know. I don't know. Cool. So either way, seems very easy, very logical. 1 CP, cool stuff. Right, now this is an interesting one. So it does seem, just on the outside, that although you get a lot of cool models in order to the combat patrols, they don't seem balanced against each other at all. In some of them, you get really cool models, like big vehicles, like the Necron's Combat Patrol gets a plane, gets a flyer, which is crazy. Whereas, for example, the Death Guard, you get like 1 million Poxwalkers, but they can't hit planes. So I don't know. Oh my god. I've probably picked like the 2 worst balanced things against each other, haven't I? Oh, yeah, okay. Never mind. Whatever. Cross that bridge when we come to it. So they have considered this. So Veteran Instincts, because whatever this team is just your, 5 Terminators, 5 Pyre Blasters, and a Librarian and a Captain in Terminator armor. You get this ability, this stratagem. Now, this stratagem is not a stratagem for regular 40k Space Marines. This is its own custom combat patrol strat. When fight phase, target 1 Terminator unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. So, a unit refers to the entirety of the models that form a unit. It's not a model, it's not a character, it is the entire unit. Effect. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1. If that attack targets a monster or vehicle unit, you can reroll the wound roll instead. This sounds pretty good. It's going to make you nice and killy. This does have an overlap with Oath of Moment, though. So Oath of Moment is you pick an enemy unit, and I'm doing this off the top of my head. So you would have access to Oath of Moment, which is a free ability because it's your detachment ability, it's called. So as a Space Marine, you get to pick an enemy unit, and every model in your army, when they attack and wound that unit, you can reroll all of your attack and wound rolls, I think. But then you can also do Veteran Instincts, which is reroll 1s for the wound roll, or if it's a monster or vehicle, reroll all the wound roll, which is cool. Whew. And then they just go on to say that this is all being tested and as its own format, which is nice. Okay, done. Wow. So the only thing that I would like to kind of comment on at the end there is Combat Patrol as a format. How can I put this? I think that if you're looking from Kill Team to go to 10th, Combat Patrol is a great stepping stone because you need to buy that box almost certainly, and it's a format, it's a game you can already play. It's nothing like Kill Team. Not at all. It is just a smaller number of models that the 40k guys have balanced for you together. And chances are, if you're going into 40k, either you're going into an existing meta where a lot of people will already have combat patrols that they can play with you, or you're going there with a friend or two who will also be buying combat patrols. Okay? So it's a great format to jump into from Kill Team. Gives you a nice easy goal to get to before looking, expanding out from the Combat Patrol into the entire codex, right? So good. Even if it is perfectly balanced and a really great system, I suppose I just want to warn y'all, don't think it's going to become a tournament game. It is a format that GW supports, but tournaments for 40k are not about small, fast games. If they were, more people would play Kill Team. Tournaments for 40k are all about how many cool models can I put on the board and playing with big toys. Which is fine. I don't say that in any way a negative way. It's cool. I don't know, I just want to say, if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to just go and play Combat Patrol and I want to put as much intensity and competitive play that I've put into Kill Team and move it to Combat Patrol, I don't think that's going to work out for you. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there will never ever be a Combat Patrol tournament, competitive tournament. In fact, I'm sure there probably will be at least one in the world at some point, probably at the beginning of the edition, because that's something most people will have access to. You get to play a faster game, new rules, so everybody's, cool. But yeah, if you're thinking of moving from Kill Team to 40k, and I genuinely think that Combat Patrol should just be a thing that you play until you have built up and painted the rest of your army. No, sorry. I've said that incorrectly, haven't I? It can be a thing that you play always if you just love the format. But don't think of it as a game that is going to be supported by tournaments if that's what you like. If you like that competitive side from Kill Team, don't expect to find that in Combat Patrol. Combat Patrol is a format that they have made balanced for you to play until you have moved up to 40k proper. Okay? There you go. I just wanted to get that out there because a lot of people that play 40k and Kill Team and therefore watch my channel very possibly do not and never have played 40k. Kill Team's great for that. It's a great way to get an entry into the universe. But don't think I'm going to make that one step up and then continue to play competitively in tournaments. It's not going to happen. I just want to throw that your way. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, that's fine, great. There's literally no negative effect for me in being wrong, so that's fine. I'm just saying, keep it in mind, there you go. However, me personally, I'm really excited to, as I've said, I've just bought 2 Combat Patrols, right? So I've got all my Kill Teams. I'm going to jump up to Combat Patrols, and then for each faction Combat Patrol, I'm going to take my Kill Team that I've got. So for Necrons, that's my Hyrotech Circle. For Death Guard, I don't have a Death Guard Kill Team. Oh no, lame. And I'm then going to think about what can I do with that Combat Patrol and that Kill Team to then go forwards into my 40k army. Because then, and I'm going to make sure, this is a thing for me, theme, big fan. I want to make sure that all of my 40k armies contain my Kill Team and my Combat Patrol. Not because I'm on a pipeline and those are all the models I have, but because I want to play Kill Team and Combat Patrol alongside 40k. And so in my mind, I'm playing the scale game, right? I'm starting at Kill Team where they're playing in a little warehouse. I go into Combat Patrol where reinforcements come in and it gets crazy. And then I'm playing the same... I'm talking about lame thematics and hobby here, aren't I? So anyway, that's it. I'm very excited for Combat Patrol, but I'd like to know what you think about Combat Patrol. Do you think it's something are you just like, why has GW done this? It's 40k, I want to play with big toys. If I'm not playing with big toys and cool strategic looking armies, I'm playing Kill Team. What's the point of this? Or do you think there's validity here? Or do you think this is just beginners 40k? And once you've learned the rules, you're never going to play Combat Patrol again. Who knows? Anyway, if you made it to the end of the video, I'd like to give you a big triple hello. Wow, so wholesome. Chaps, chapesses, chapai, thank you so much for watching. I'm honestly just really excited about lots of GW stuff at the moment. Just games, man. I'm enjoying Kill Team. We've just got Ashes of Faith coming right after Gallowfall. We've got an entire new 40k edition with Tyranids, which I love. My gosh. I'm really excited for Star Wars Shatterpoint, and I'm putting all of this effort into this new channel, which is getting me more and more hyped and really pushing my hobby to the next level. As in, I'm doing more of it, not that it's getting better. You can't improve upon perfection, that's all I'm gonna say, lads.